What's up, guys? Your man Unspoken Reviews back again with another video, man. And today we're going to be talking about the season finale of Daredevil Born Again Season 2, Episode 8, The Southern Cross. All right, guys. So it has finally come to an end. And I got to say, man, overall, I got to say, I really did love this season. I'll be honest, I don't think it was the most amazing television I've seen in a long time. But in terms of wrap up, pretty good. In terms of overall, I really did like it. I'm glad to see that season two has been so successful, and they believed in it so much that they're already starting on season three. And I can't wait to see where the story goes from here because there's so many unanswered questions, so many characters that we don't know what has happened to them. The show doesn't touch up on a few characters here and there, and I was curious to see how their stories would end this season, but it does not show that, and it makes me much more curious to see what we have with season three. All right, guys. So the episode does open up with Matt and Karen together, and you can see they're kind of living in this bit of a fantasy land. However, Karen does snap back to reality as she's sitting in a courtroom, and nobody knows where Matt is. We do know that he got shot, and Jessica does manage to find him and is tending to his wounds as she has decided to come back to help Matt out. And once again, another thing I love about Jessica Jones, Kristen Ritter just does a great job, but the character herself, when she comes back like that, it's always this powerful moment for her when she realizes that these are her friends and she can't just abandon them. Love that about Jessica and Matt. I remember them just having such a hard time in the beginning when they get to know each other, and seeing how far they've come now. You really just love the not only the banter, but the way they back each other up. The way she comes back and helps him was pretty awesome, and she decides to stick by him to the very end, saving the city. And Matt does come up with some ideas of how he's going to fix this whole situation to stop Fisk once and for all. Speaking of Fisk, we do find out at this moment he is still dealing with a lot of grief from Vanessa, but he also receives the letter from the courts telling him that he has to come forward and testify during Karen's court date. And I thought that was pretty interesting for Matt to decide to drag him in like that. That's pretty interesting to do that. It's a pretty smart play on his end. And this is also the time when it's revealed to him that Daniel has died. That's right. Buck does come and tell him that, Daniel won't be coming in, that he did not bring in BB. And you can kind of see this disappointment on Fisk's face as he kind of hoped that Daniel would, take on the reins for him after he was gone. He kind of seen him as a younger him. It is hard on Fisk. And I like how he says he's only now beginning to understand the difficulties of being a public servant for the city. And it's interesting, like he's kind of saying that he didn't recognize that he'd lose so much trying to save the city his way as opposed to being Kingpin. I think he kind of realized at that moment that being Kingpin gave him more freedom, more reign, and more ability to be who he wanted to be as opposed to trying to be something different. And in that route to do something different, he lost more than he gained. And I thought that was pretty interesting as he's kind of realizing that. This is another thing that I'm glad this show does that I really hope the MCU continues. Give us villains that are going through as much as the heroes. That's something that is really important, man. I can't really stress this enough. I loved it with Loki. I actually loved it with Killmonger. I loved it with Thanos. I loved it with Wenwu. These are the kind of villains you need. People that you can get behind. You know what I mean? You understand what they're going through, and you can't really fault them for the things that they're doing. Because technically, if anyone else would hear the story from their perspective, they would believe that they were right in their actions. And it's kind of scary when you see it like that. And I need to see more villains like this. I need to see the heroes coming up against these ideologies where they're beginning to question themselves. I think that is so important. All right, so we do cut back to the courtroom, and we see Matt finally does arrive, and it's a good thing, too, because Karen is just not doing good, with Powell coming at her, different type of people taking the stand. And this includes Heather as well, as Heather is constantly coming down on Karen about saying she's unstable, having antisocial personality disorder, trying their best to discredit her, that her being a vigilante in the city is pretty much a danger. And I love how as soon as Matt walks into the courtroom, all that immediately shuts down. It's like they're trying to discredit her, and Matt immediately, as soon as he crosses that threshold, immediately objects, stops everything that's being said. I like just how he has that I'm a very good lawyer personality. As soon as he walks in the door, you can see how much McDuffie actually needs him to kind of carry things. The way he catches things so quickly is awesome. And Matt actually has to go toe to toe with Heather while she's on the stand. And I like how Matt is able to stop her in her track. And seeing how Heather doesn't exactly have any confidence going towards Matt is something that I really love. So midway through the show, we do see that Bullseye is making his moves. He does, take out some of the anti-vigilante task force as they had been setting up in a building across from the courthouse to possibly take out either Matt, Karen, or McDuffie. And just to see that these guys are still making these crazy moves, trying to kill anyone they can, trying to still keep holding the city, just goes to show how scared they are of the potential of them losing control over everything. However, Bullseye does show up and he just starts knocking dudes down, throwing knives everywhere. So awesome seeing this dude be in his element. I love how as soon as he takes out the one guy, he throws a knife in the actual Bullseye because the guy's wearing like a Bullseye makeup outfit. And he actually throws a knife at the Bullseye on his forehead. And I love how he calls him a poser, which is kind of like a little shout out to the Black Widow movie from Yelena when she says such a poser. I know it's not the same poser, but you know what I mean? I kind of like how he kind of is a little annoyed by somebody trying to be him. And you see that he's taking up the rifle and he's preparing for somebody to walk out that doorway. And I doubt that it's Matt or any of his allies. Matt finally decides to bring, Fisk to the stand. And you can just feel the tension in the room change. Everybody's on edge. And, Matt goes at him, asking him a whole bunch of questions about his control over the city. And does he believe the Safer Streets Act is being effective? And, showing that there's a possibility that the act that he's putting in is causing more harm than good. I like that we got less Attorney Matt Murdock in this season. It seemed like last season we had more Attorney Matt Murdock. And they seem to be more focused on the Daredevil aspect of this season. I'm not complaining about that. I loved it. But I do like that the way that the show wraps up is that it's Matt's most effective way of making a change is being the attorney that he knows how to be. Not just being the vigilante, but also being Matt Murdock, the blind lawyer. And I like how he kind of talks Fisk into a corner, right? He starts to ask him about the Northern Star and about how weapons got on it and if the vigilante task force had their hands on it. And I like how they are able to have the discussion of what is a vigilante and what does a vigilante do exactly? And can a vigilante be trusted? It's the kind of thing where he's taking all of the different arguments from Hochberg, Heather, and Wilson, and he's putting them together in a ball. And you see Hochberg is trying to stop Matt because he can sense what he's doing. But every single time he tries, I got to give credit to the judges. They keep on stopping him and keep sustaining all his objections because they're really giving Matt the chance to really say what he needs to say. And he drags it on for a little while. And I just thought that was pretty smart because he needs to make sure that Wilson dictates exactly everything that has happened and what vigilantes are capable of doing and if they can be considered heroes or not. So they do decide to eventually not only touch up on the Northern Star, but they also talk about the first mate. Hochberg tries to stop this from getting out into evidence. However, the judge does allow it. And I do love how they're in the judge's chambers. There's this little moment where Wilson is kind of whispering because he knows Matt can hear him. And he's telling him that he knows secrets that could ruin his life. And you can see the wheels kind of turning in Matt's head as he realizes what he has to do. So they do actually play the recording from the first mate. I do love how the whole courtroom is still listening to this because he says that they were told to bring weapons in by a man known as the Kingpin, but it's also Mayor Fisk. He actually says his name on the recording. Now, if you guys know anything about recordings, usually if someone dies after giving a recording, it can be considered credible because it's their last thing that they say before they actually die, and they actually kind of take that into consideration, especially if the person's dead. But they don't have any proof that he's dead and he's not in the courtroom, so that's what Hochberg tries to argue. But they said they only need one other person to corroborate that the weapons were there and they were going to be used for that specific purpose. And they say if they can prove that and they can say who was there, then that is grounds for them to move forward. And you can see the look on Wilson's face as he's starting to realize he's not really, he looks shocked that he's going down this road. Like he looks shocked because as he's looking at Matt, he can't believe that he's about to do it. And he realizes at that point in time that he's screwed. And when all that comes to light, Matt does admit that he is Daredevil and that him and Jessica, that he was aboard the Northern Star when the weapons got there, when the ship was destroyed, and that him and Jessica worked together to break into where the anti-vigilante task force were holding the weapons, and that they managed to stop them by keeping the city streets safe.
The task force with said weapons, which we then destroyed in the interest of public safety. Fist smuggling is a criminal act. Arming the task force with smuggled weapons.
Jessica Jones also does show up with the governor as kind of like a protective detail, and he corroborates everything that they believed about the Northern Star, about the weapons, him being there to see it himself. And they give it to the judges, and the judges do decide to let Karen off as not guilty. And, she's, absolved of all charges. However, Matt does have to stay back. It's a great win. It definitely gets you like hyped up, but it's sad because you realize what this is going to mean for Matthew. You realize what this is going to take away from. Fisk does get stopped. The governor does tell him that he has to step down from his position, that he doesn't have a choice. And he does try to use the whole office paperwork answer that there's a process that has to happen. And she doesn't try to stop him. She says, either way, whatever you do, you're getting out of that office. Meets Wilson at the door. He's like, where you going, Murdoch? He's like, oh, no. He was like making sure he didn't do nothing stupid. And he was offering him a chance out. Like, he was like, you could walk away and we could just, do this right. There's no reason for this to go any further, because he knows the moment that Wilson leaves that courtroom, he's going to do whatever he has to do to destroy the city, or at least try to control it as much as he can with as much power as he can before it's too late. So Powell does give the order to have Murdoch shot. However, he doesn't know that it is the wrong bullseye. Bullseye does manage to get a shot off on Buck, which I kind of thought he was going to die this episode, but he does not. Everybody scatters in different directions because, of course, the anti-vigilante task force is trying to take out Bullseye. They fail at that. Bullseye, unfortunately, did not get his target, but he's not mad about it. He just kind of escapes while he has a chance. And everybody is still in the courthouse. Everybody splits off in separate directions. Our heroes go off on one side. Our villains go off on another. And they realize that sooner or later, this whole situation is a powder keg. And sooner or later, it's going to go up. And you can not only sense this from what's going on inside the courthouse, but also in the city as well. It doesn't help that Wilson gets on the news and makes this whole announcement about the city, talking about how he's trying to save it and he needs them to support him through this. And you see that there are two different sides that are being affected. It's the people that believe in Daredevil, and there's people that believe in Fisk. But most of the people that show up at the building are Daredevil supporters. It's a bit of the rebellion that does show up to try to stop the anti-vigilante task force. And I like in this moment, we're not just getting the regular civilians. We also got Mahoney that shows up. Cherry shows up. All the good cops in the city show up to try to save the city. And I like how Cherry is trying to talk down the task force. And I thought that was pretty interesting when Cole North starts to realize that, things are wrong. He gets ready to shoot, but Mahoney brings up the fact about Hector Ayala. And you start to see that Cole's belief in Powell starts to drop, especially after what Powell did, killing that other task force agent. Cole does go against Powell. He does put him down, and he does allow the people to go through and try to retake City Hall. And I thought that was a real powerful moment for Cole. I think he definitely had a moment where he stepped up and did the right thing. I like how this show gave people a chance to recognize the things they were doing wrong and make a difference the right way. So the rebellion does start to take over the courthouse. And at the same time, Matt does suit up as Daredevil, and him and Jessica Jones do get a pretty awesome fight scene through a hallway. Figures. And, they end up taking out as many of the task force agents as they possibly can. Hochberg is trying to figure out a way that he can get out of this situation, to which Heather gives him a quick strike to the throat. And while I don't like Heather, I think I just as much don't like Hochberg. So him getting punched in the throat did make me feel bad. And unfortunately, we do see that Buck doesn't die. So I think he might come back in season 3, which I'm kind of mad about because that dude's a loser. But it seems like he's got much more story to tell. Sheila tries to get him to accept the Attorney General's offer to step down, but Fisk just will not have it. So he decides to get up and go out and meet that fight on his own. And I like how as soon as he opens the door to the rebellion, he's like, boo, and just cracks the shit out of the first person he sees. I mean, this dude is breaking spines against the wall. He's causing traumatic brain injuries. People are dying. I mean, this guy has like half of his face and suit is drenched in blood. And he's just taking out every single rebellious person that he can find, just letting all his anger out as much as he possibly can. Eventually, he does meet up with Matt and the rest of the rebellion on the stairwell, and he tries to say he's trying to help the city, which the rebellion is just not taking it, man. And they're done, and everybody just starts swarming him. And you see at first, Matt and Jessica and everyone is trying to stop them because he does realize if that crowd gets too wild, they are going to kill him. And that's not what Matt wants. So him and Jessica kind of have to fight through the crowd. And I like how when Wilson and Matt have this moment, he tells Wilson, just take this offer, just walk away. You can go off and live whatever life you want. Like, it's over. It's just over. And I like how these two just have this moment. And he's still fighting it, but eventually he does succumb and he does accept his offer and he decides to leave the city. It seems that he goes back to the island that, him and Vanessa were on. And, Matt unfortunately does have to go to prison. Now, a lot of people did not like this ending, feeling like, now, like, I won't lie, this dude killed multiple people. There's no way he should have been able to leave. I mean, if he didn't kill him, he definitely paralyzed like a ton of people and gave millions of people, quite a few many people, concussion, and they probably won't be the same for a long period of time. But so for him to be able to walk away and be on the island like nothing ever happened, a lot of people didn't like that. But looking at Wilson, he didn't really win anything. He didn't win the city. He lost Vanessa. He lost Daniel. He lost everything. And now he's stuck somewhere where it's supposed to be paradise for him. And now it just feels like another box. And he has to figure out how to adjust to that box. And it makes me wonder where he'll go with season 3. With Matt, unfortunately, he does get a little bit of time with Karen. But of course, he is arrested because when he was Daredevil, he was breaking quite a few many laws, skirting around the system. Even though he was doing good, the method in which he was doing definitely does still go against some laws. So unfortunately, he's arrested. However, you can see he's not really depressed and sad. He kind of accepts where he's at and realizes that what he did was necessary for the city. Also, another thing about that fight scene that happens in the courtroom, it was pretty cool getting a little bit of a scene with Ava Ayala, seeing her kind of tap more into the White Tiger persona. I can't wait to see where her character goes from here. I hope that she gets to stay in the MCU because the character is a really good character. I'm actually watching Ultimate Spider-Man, and I kind of like the character. So I'm really kind of hoping that she continues on and maybe one day meets the webhead. We'll see what happens. Thing that we did, we also see that Heather finally goes full Muse. She puts on the mask, and we see that in her reflection, she sees a more happy and content Heather, almost like she's accepting what she's become. I can't wait to see how her Muse personality affects the city moving forward. I'm wondering how Matt's going to get out of this. I'm pretty sure the Defenders are going to come back. As we do see at the very end of the episode, Luke Cage does return. It was great seeing Mike Coulter return home, as Luke Cage, seeing him come back with Jessica and his daughter. As we see that he's also no longer working for the CIA. All the work that he did was done, and he's finally fully home, as Mr. Charles has now put Bullseye under his employment. I thought that was pretty interesting that he decides to take Bullseye, which, Poindexter doesn't care. He'll just do the job. To him, it doesn't really matter. It's not personal. He just does the work. So, it's kind of a place where he belongs. It makes me wonder if he will become a part of the Thunderbolts at some time. That would be pretty cool if we see that. I don't know if they do another version of Thunderbolts. Maybe he might be another member on that team. But this was a good season finale, man. I'm excited to see where we go with everything from here. I'm super excited to see what happens with season 3. This also makes me more excited about that jail scene from Spider-Man Brand New Day. As we see, the Hand does attack Peter while he's in the prison. Is he protecting Matt? Is he maybe protecting Jean Grey? I don't know. I mean, it would make sense if it was Matt and the Hand was there looking for him. By this time, Matt's identity, is out there for everyone to know about. So Peter would still remember him. Remember, Peter's mind didn't get erased, so he still remembers all of them. And Matt Murdock was his lawyer in, No Way Home. So he might go looking for him, needing his help. It does make me wonder if Matt is going to remember him. Now, keep in mind, I know that Doctor Strange's magic wipes away everyone's memory, but does that go the same for Matt's senses? Because whatever Matt actually gets around somebody, it's like his senses remember them. He remembers how they walk, how they talk, little mannerisms that they give off. It kind of makes me wonder, even though Matt's mind may not remember Peter, will his senses pick up on the familiarity of them knowing each other? It wouldn't surprise me if it did. That would be pretty cool. It's something that I did wonder would change. Because there is a quick shot where Peter, the Spider-Man, does go at the hand at the very end of the trailer, and you can kind of see some of the hand members are going downwards, not upwards. Do we get like a cameo from Daredevil? Do we get a team up between Spider-Man and Daredevil? I'm hoping so. You know that Sony tries to keep these things quiet, but eventually we all figure it out. Like if you look at the trailers, they did the same thing at No Way Home. The way they had the villains going in different directions, we all kind of figured out there was somebody helping Spider-Man. And I'm also looking forward to the Punisher special, guys. We got that in a couple days. I'm super excited to watch that as well. Also, keep an eye out. I'm going to be doing the Mortal Kombat out of theater reaction to it, and then I'm going to be doing a review for that film. I can't wait to see that movie as well tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will catch you guys in the next one.